What if everything you believed about change is wrong? They told you it takes years, that real transformation is slow, that you have to be patient, wait your turn, and earn it over time. But deep down, you've always known that something about that story doesn't feel right. Because what they don't tell you is this: change doesn't take years, it takes a decision, a moment of truth, a week of war against who you were, and a rebirth into who you were always meant to be. You don't need more time, you need more truth. And the truth is, you've been lied to, conditioned to believe that you're not ready, that you're not enough yet, that your transformation must wait until you suffered long enough, proven enough, or gain permission from someone else. But that belief is the very thing holding you hostage. You waited long enough. You've hesitated, doubted, postponed your power again and again until even you started to believe you were meant to stay the same. But something inside you is waking up. A small voice that's getting louder. Feeling in your gut that says, I can't live like this anymore. That quiet ache that says, I was made for more than this. That part of you buried under years of pretending, distractions, fears, and false starts is still alive. And this week is coming back to life. You're not watching this by accident. You're here because some part of you still believes that change is possible. And not just someday, but now. Not small change, not surface level improvements, not a better version of the same life. I'm talking about a full transformation, a radical rebirth, the kind of change that makes people stare and say, what happened to you? The kind of change where no one recognizes you. And that's exactly what you want. You've been carrying around an old identity like a weight, one built from your past, your mistakes, your fears, and all the things you've been through. But you are not your past, you are not your pain, and you are not your patterns unless you keep choosing to be. This week is your line in the sand. 7 days to show yourself what you're truly capable of. 7 days to delete the excuses, to silence the doubt, to outwork the voice that keeps telling you to slow down. 7 days to shock yourself with your own power, your own focus, your own ability to follow through. Not because it's easy, not because it's comfortable, but because you're finally done living life at half speed. By the end of this week, you won't just feel different, you will be different. There's no going back after this. Not because you've changed a little, but because you've rewritten everything. The way you think, the way you move, the way you see yourself when no one's watching. This isn't about motivation. It's about identity. And when identity shifts, everything else follows. So here's the truth they never told you. You don't need more time, you need this week. And if you give it everything, your mind, your heart, your energy, your effort, then 7 days from now, the world won't recognize you. But more importantly, you won't recognize yourself. And that's exactly the point. Stay with me. You're about to meet the version of you who was always waiting beneath the surface. Let's begin. You don't transform by wishing. You transform by confronting. This week, you're stepping into a war. And the battlefield is you, not the outside world, not other people, not your job, your past, or your circumstances. You, the old habits that cling to you like chains, the lies you keep telling yourself to stay small, the comfort that numbs you and the fear that paralyzes you. This is where the fight begins, and it will not be easy. But easy has never made anyone unrecognizable. Understand this, the old you will not go quietly. It will beg, it will bargain, it will seduce you back into your old rhythm with whispers of, you've earned a break, this is too much, just one day off. But every time you listen, you give that old version of you another breath. You let the weakness survive a little longer, and you can't afford that anymore. Not now. Not when you've seen even a glimpse of what you could become if you refuse to back down. This isn't about perfection. It's about commitment. You don't need to do everything flawlessly. You just need to show up when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because pressure creates clarity. Challenge reveals truth. And discomfort exposes who's really in charge, your highest self or your excuses. The goal is not to feel ready. It's to act in spite of not feeling ready. That's where power lives. Not in the moments you feel like it, but in the moments you don't, and you do it anyway. There is a version of you that only appears when you are tested. You've met glimpses of them before, in flashes, in moments when you pushed through something you thought would break you, when you said no to something that once owned you, when you surprised even yourself. That version isn't a fantasy, it's real, it's raw, and it's waiting. But it only shows up when you stop negotiating with your limitations and start declaring war on your old self. This week, you will want to quit. That is not a possibility, it's a certainty. There will be moments you feel tired, frustrated, discouraged, maybe even broken. That's exactly when you go harder, because those are the moments most people run back to comfort. That's when they retreat, reset, and repeat the same life over and over again. But not you, not this time. You didn't come here to repeat. You came here to rise. You're not in this to improve the past. You're in this to destroy it, to stop explaining why you are the way you are, to stop carrying stories that keep you weak, to stop giving energy to the things you say you want to change. No more living in between. No more half commitments. No more flirting with potential. You either step fully into who you were born to be, or you keep pretending you're fine with less. And if you were fine with less, you wouldn't still be listening right now. This is your week of becoming, but only if you're willing to bleed for it. Not physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Willing to let go of who you were, even if it hurts. Willing to keep moving, even when no one is clapping. Willing to break the loop, so you can finally build the light that's been chasing you all along. You've already felt the cost of staying the same. Now feel the fire of becoming something so powerful, so focused, so alive, that even your reflection will be forced to change. Keep going. The war has already started. If you want to become someone no one recognizes, you have to destroy the script you've been living by. The one that says this is just who I am. The one built on your worst moments. The one filled with limits you never agreed to but accepted anyway. That script is outdated. It was written by fear, by failure, by the voices of people who gave up on themselves long ago. Every time you replay it, you relive a life that was never truly yours. Tear it up. Every excuse you memorized, every false identity you've worn like armor, every belief that says you're not ready, not worthy, not enough, let it burn. Because as long as you're trying to improve the old you, you're building on broken ground. And no matter how much effort you pour into it, it will always collapse under pressure. Transformation doesn't come from fixing what's broken. It comes from walking away from the person you never truly wanted to be in the first place. This is the moment you stop editing the past and start writing a new future. Not a better version of the same story, a different story, a new chapter with a new character. One who no longer waits for motivation, permission, or certainty. One who no longer seeks validation in being understood. You don't need to explain your change to anyone. You don't owe the world your reasons for evolving. Let your actions be your voice. Let your silence speak louder than your past ever could. You were not born to play a role someone else cast for you. The truth is, you never fit in because you weren't supposed to. You never felt fully alive because you weren't living as your real self. That emptiness wasn't failure. It was a signal, a call to rise, a sign that what you were doing, who you were pretending to be, wasn't big enough for your soul. You were built for something more. And now, finally, you're ready to step into it. But it starts with full deletion. No more trying to change. No more easing into it. No more living with one foot in your future and the other stuck in your past. You want to be unrecognizable? Then stop being familiar to yourself. Stop repeating the same thoughts, the same words, the same patterns. Burn the script so completely that even your mind has to pause and ask, who am I becoming? This is where real transformation happens. Not in changing what you do, but in changing who you are. Your habits will follow. Your results will follow. Your entire reality will shift to match the new standard you choose to live by. But it starts now, in this moment, with a clean slate and a conscious decision to no longer be who you were yesterday. From this second forward, you act like the person you were destined to become. Not later, not when it's easier. Now, let the old version of you wonder what happened. Let the world try to figure it out. Let them watch in silence as you evolve in full view, with no need to explain, justify, or seek permission. You are no longer adjusting to a broken pattern. You are becoming a pattern breaker. And once you do that, once you fully burn the script, there's no going back. Only forward, only fire, only truth. Once the script is gone, only one thing remains: the decision, not a wish, not a hope, not a soft intention whispered in comfort, a decision carved into your soul with the force of finality. You don't become someone new by exploring the idea. You become someone new by declaring it so completely that there's no room left for debate. This is who I am now. This is who I rise as, and there's no going back. You've been negotiating with your potential for far too long. telling yourself maybe tomorrow, maybe when I feel ready, maybe when it's easier. But those negotiations are the language of the old self, the self that's dying, the self that wants to delay your greatness just one more day. But this is the moment when you take that voice and silence it for good. This is the moment when the debate ends. The doubts, the excuses, the endless mental back and forth, they all fall quiet. You don't try to become, you decide to become. Because decision is power, and not just any decision. The kind that locks the door behind you, so you can't run back when it gets hard. The kind that removes every exit except forward. This is what separates those who change from those who stay stuck. Not talent, not time, just this. A decision so firm it cuts off the old life at the root. Write it down. Not a vague goal, not a wish list, a sentence, a declaration. This is who I am now. Speak it out loud, even if your voice shakes, especially if it does. Because that voice, trembling in truth, is your rebirth. And the moment you speak it into the world, the transformation begins. Not later, not someday, right now. The mind obeys what the mouth declares. This is neuroscience, not inspiration. Your brain responds to repetition. Identity is built by what you tell yourself repeatedly, with emotion, with certainty. So every time you say, I can't, your brain wires you to fail. But every time you say, I'm becoming, and you back it with belief, your brain begins to rewire around that truth. Neurons change, patterns shift, habits bend to your will. The world starts to align, not because it changed, but because you did. You don't need to believe in the entire path. You just need to believe in the next step. This is where people get trapped. They think they need to see the full picture, feel fully confident, eliminate all fear before they act. But the truth is, clarity comes from movement. Belief comes from doing. Confidence is not a requirement, it's a reward. You earn it with action. You don't wait for the fire, you become the spark. This is the new standard. No more low expectations, no more watered down goals, no more living at 60%, hoping it'll feel like 100. From this moment, you live like the person you just declared yourself to be. You eat like them, move like them, think like them, work like them, speak like them, because you are them. You just haven't given the world a chance to catch up yet, and they will. They'll notice the shift, the silence, the intensity, the edge. But none of that matters right now. What matters is that you've decided fully, completely, with every cell in your body. And when you decide like that, nothing, not fear, not failure, not fatigue, can stop the rise. The old you negotiates, the new you dominates. This is who you are now. Act like it. Now the decision is made, the real work begins. Not the kind of work you post about, the quiet work, the internal grind, the moments no one sees, when you rise early despite the resistance, when you push forward with nothing but your own fire, when you say no to what weakens you even though it screams for your attention. This is the process that shapes you, not in public, but in private. Where the old patterns used to win, you now dominate. Where you used to hesitate, you now move. This is where identity becomes reality, and it will not always feel like progress. It will often feel like chaos, like breaking, like everything inside you is being ripped apart. That's because it is. Growth is violent. It pulls apart what's false and forces you to face what's real. And it hurts, not because you're failing, but because you're shedding the version of you that was never meant to stay. You are not losing yourself. You are meeting yourself for the first time, beneath the layers, beneath the noise, beneath the identity that was handed to you by your past, your pain, and your circumstances. And what you'll find there isn't weakness. It's power. The kind of power that doesn't need to prove anything because it already knows who it is. You don't get there by pretending. You get there by doing the hard things repeatedly, relentlessly, especially when they don't feel rewarding, because transformation isn't supposed to feel like success. It's supposed to feel like war. You will question yourself. You will doubt the process. You will wonder if it's working. That's normal. That's human. But don't mistake emotional discomfort for the absence of progress. That discomfort is the progress. It means the system is breaking. It means your nervous system is recalibrating. It means your mind is trying to cling to what's familiar while your soul is demanding what's true. Don't run from it. Stay in it. Let it tear through you. Let it burn away the illusions you used to hide behind. Let it expose what's weak so it can be rebuilt strong. You don't grow by staying the same. You grow by dying to who you were over and over until what remains is unshakable. until what remains is real, until you don't have to fake confidence anymore because it's who you are now. Most people never make it this far. They make the decision, but not the sacrifice. They want the transformation, but not the tension. So they break, they fall back, they tell themselves they'll try again later. But you're not most people. You're here, you're awake, and you've already come too far to go back. Now it's time to lean into the pain, to stop asking when it gets easier and start asking how much stronger you can become. Because this isn't just about changing your life. This is about owning it. Taking back every inch of ground you gave away to fear, laziness, and doubt. Reclaiming your focus, reclaiming your power, reclaiming your time. You're not waiting for a breakthrough. You are the breakthrough. And every time you show up, when it's hard, you prove it. Not to the world, to yourself. That's what matters now. That's what builds unshakable belief. And that belief, once it's earned through action, becomes unstoppable. Keep going. You're not becoming a better version of your past. You're becoming something the past can't even touch. There's a point in every transformation where your old life starts to pull harder. It senses what you're doing. It feels the shift, and it fights back. Not because it's strong, but because it's desperate. The habits you broke will tempt you again. The people who benefited from your weakness will show up. The thoughts you thought you conquered will creep in quietly, hoping you'll mistake them for truth. That's the test. Not the loud chaos, but the quiet pull back into what's familiar. But you're not going back. Not now. Not after all this. Not when you're finally starting to feel the first signs of real freedom. That pull is just a signal that your breakthrough is near. The resistance always gets louder right before it breaks. So don't panic when the voices return. Don't question your path when the fear resurfaces. Just because something shows up again doesn't mean it owns you. It means you're strong enough to face it at a higher level. And you are. You've already shown it. In every step you've taken forward, in every moment you chose discipline over distraction, in every hour you kept your word when it would have been easier to quit. That's not motivation, that's identity. And it's growing stronger every single day. Your brain is starting to believe you. Your body is adapting. Your standards are rising. And even if the change isn't visible yet, it's happening. Most people wait to see results before they trust the process, but you're doing something different. You're trusting the process so deeply that the results become inevitable. You're planting roots so far beneath the surface that the world won't even see what's coming. And by the time they do, it'll be too late to stop you. Because transformation doesn't begin with what's seen. It begins in silence, in solitude, in those early invisible victories no one claps for. But that's exactly where the real strength is built. This is where you harden your focus, not by adding more, but by cutting away what doesn't belong. The distractions, the noise, the low-value habits that sneak in and rob you of greatness while pretending to be harmless. Every time you say yes to what drains you, you say no to who you're becoming. But now you see it. You feel the difference. You know what aligns and what steals, and knowing that is your edge. Cut it out, all of it. Every minute spent scrolling mindlessly, every conversation that pulls you into drama, every excuse that disguises itself as logic. Cut it out, not later, now. Because your new life can't be built with the same materials that created your old one. The mindset must change. The environment must change. The energy you tolerate must change. You are not just adjusting behaviors, you're reshaping your entire reality. That takes precision. That takes sacrifice, but it's worth it. Because when you fully commit, not halfway, not when it's easy, but completely, you stop surviving and start leading. Not leading others, leading yourself. That's the highest form of power. To be so in control of your thoughts, your time, your actions, that nothing external can move you without your permission. That's what this week is creating. A version of you that is calm under chaos, unshakable under pressure, focused under fire. Keep carving it, keep sharpening, keep cutting away what no longer serves. Because with every unnecessary thing you release, the real you comes into focus. Not the version shaped by survival, the one shaped by vision. The one the world won't recognize, but the one you were always meant to become. Now that you started to strip away the noise, you're beginning to hear something else, your own voice. Not the one programmed by other people's opinions, not the one shaped by fear or insecurity. The voice underneath it all, the one that's been buried, ignored, silenced by years of self-doubt and distraction. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand attention. It whispers truth. And now that you've quieted the chaos, you can finally hear it clearly. It's the voice that knows exactly who you're meant to be. It doesn't care about your past. It doesn't care what they said about you. It doesn't need external validation, likes, applause, or permission. It knows the path. And deep down, so do you. You've always known. The reason you felt restless, unfulfilled, and stuck is because you weren't following it. You were following rules made for someone else's life. But now, finally, you're listening to yourself. That changes everything. Because once you're aligned with that voice, your real self, momentum becomes unstoppable. Not because life gets easier, but because you become clearer. You stop second guessing. You stop asking for signs. You stop waiting for everything to make sense. You move with purpose, with presence, with conviction. And the more you listen, the louder that voice becomes, until eventually it drowns out the fear completely. That voice is not a fantasy. It's not delusion. It's your instinct, your truth. Science calls it your inner compass. Psychology calls it self-authorship, the point where you stop living a life written by the world and start authoring your own. This is real, and it doesn't belong to the lucky few. It belongs to the disciplined, the focused, the bold, the ones who dare to trust themselves even when nothing around them says they should. This is your edge now, radical self-trust, not blind confidence, not ego. Trust in your ability to rise, adapt, learn, endure, evolve. Trust in the process. Trust in the quiet work you've been doing. Trust in your vision, even when no one else sees it yet, especially then, because the strongest version of you doesn't chase understanding. It walks forward in faith. It builds in silence. It knows the results will speak louder than explanations ever could. But here's the truth most people avoid. That voice can't coexist with the habits that numb it. You can't hear it through endless distraction. You can't feel it if you keep betraying your own word. You can't follow it while staying addicted to comfort. That voice gets stronger every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you choose discipline over desire, every time you move through fear instead of negotiating with it. That's when clarity comes. That's when alignment happens. And when you're aligned, everything changes. Your decisions become cleaner. Your energy becomes focused. Your presence becomes magnetic. You stop chasing outcomes and start becoming the kind of person who naturally creates them. That's the shift. That's what this week is forging in you. A new operating system, one that doesn't rely on emotion or external motivation, one that runs on discipline, clarity, and unshakable trust in who you're becoming. This is what transformation really is. Not a new habit, not a better routine, a new voice running the show, a voice that no longer asks, can I do this, but says, watch me. And the more you live by that voice, the more the old one fades, the more your past loses its grip, until one day, not long from now, you'll look in the mirror and even you won't recognize who you become. That moment when you no longer recognize the person in the mirror is not the end, it's the beginning, because transformation doesn't end when you become unrecognizable. That's where it starts to accelerate. That's where power compounds. That's where your identity stops being a goal and starts becoming your natural state. You don't just act disciplined anymore. You are disciplined. You don't try to be focused. You live focused. The behaviors you had to force become automatic. They aren't tasks on a checklist. They are expressions of who you are now. This is the threshold few ever reach, and even fewer sustain, because it's not just about becoming someone new. It's about maintaining it when the excitement fades, when the crowd stops clapping, when the results slow down, when nobody is watching. That's where the strongest version of you must show up, not to impress, not to perform, but because this is simply what you do now. This is who you are now. No backup plan, no fallback identity. You've burned the bridge, and now the only direction is forward. And it's in this space, this deep internal knowing, that you discover something even more powerful than change, ownership. You stop blaming your past. You stop waiting for the right conditions. You stop resenting the setbacks. You take it all, the pain, the pressure, the responsibility, and you use it. You don't just adapt to the environment, you shape it. You stop living by reaction and start living by design, not just for a week, not just while you feel inspired, but as a way of life. Ownership means you no longer need external permission to go all in. You don't ask if it's okay to evolve. You don't seek validation to level up. You rise because rising is non-negotiable. It's not a strategy. It's a standard. And when that standard becomes non-negotiable, your entire life starts to align. People notice, opportunities open, but none of that is the reward. The real reward is knowing you can trust yourself now fully, finally, completely. That self-trust is unshakable because it's built on evidence, not hype, not emotion. Evidence. Every early morning, every rep, every focused hour, every time you said no to what didn't serve you, every time you stayed on path while the world offered distractions, those weren't small choices. They were votes for the future, you. And now, the election is over. That version has won. It's not some distant ideal anymore. It's who you are, right here, right now. And yes, some people will question it. They'll ask if it's really you. They'll wonder if it's sustainable, if it's just a phase. But that's not your problem. Their confusion is not your burden. Their disbelief is not your responsibility. Let them doubt. Let them hesitate. While they debate your transformation, you live it. You own it. You wake up each day and prove, not to them, but to yourself, that this is real, that it's permanent, that it's earned. And the more you walk in that truth, the less you need to explain it, because power speaks without words. It's in your energy, your presence, your consistency. It radiates from your actions. And that kind of power can't be faked, copied, or denied. It's forged in discipline, solidified in struggle, and revealed in silence. You've stepped into it now. You've crossed the invisible line. The old you is gone. And there's no version of the future where they return. Let that truth settle in. The old you is not coming back. Not because you hated that version, not because you're trying to escape your past, but because you've finally outgrown it. Just like a snake sheds its skin, you've shed an identity that no longer fits. And what's emerging now is something more refined, more intentional, more alive. You're not a better version of your past self. You're a completely different force altogether. And that's what real growth looks like. Not just improvement. Rebirth. It's uncomfortable. It's raw. It feels unstable at first because everything familiar starts to shift. Your thoughts shift. Your priorities shift. Your standards shift. And because of that, your world shifts. People won't understand. Some will drift. Some will resist. But understand this. When you change your frequency, not everything from your old world can stay connected. That's not a loss. That's alignment. And alignment always requires separation from what no longer resonates. You don't owe your old life loyalty. You owe your future everything. And yes, that demands courage, because there's nothing more terrifying than walking away from the version of yourself that kept you safe, even if that version also kept you stuck. But safety isn't the goal anymore. Growth is, freedom is, full alignment with who you were meant to be is. And that requires a level of commitment most people never tap into, the kind of commitment that says, I don't care what it costs. I will not shrink to fit a life I've outgrown. When you hold that kind of energy, life moves differently. Doors open, people notice, not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. You no longer send mixed signals to the universe. You're no longer torn between who you were and who you're becoming. You've chosen, and in that choice, you reclaim your time. You reclaim your energy. You reclaim your voice. You stop bending to fit expectations and start expanding into your full potential. That expansion isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. Real power is quiet. It doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It just moves with precision and purpose. That's where you are now, not reacting, not seeking permission, just executing, not for applause, not for approval, but because this is what your future demands. This is what your vision requires. Every day, every moment, every choice is a brick in the foundation of the life you're building. And you're not guessing anymore. You're not looking around for models to follow. You've become the example. You've become the evidence that change is possible, that discipline works, that focus pays off, that pain when faced with courage becomes power. You are the walking proof of what happens when someone stops waiting to feel ready and starts moving with purpose. Regardless of fear, resistance, or doubt, there's nothing more powerful than someone who knows who they are. And that's you now, you don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You don't need to be rescued. You've already been chosen by the version of yourself that refused to stay average. You've already been called by the future that's been waiting for you to wake up and claim it. And now you're here, fully awake, fully locked in. No hesitation, no turning back. This is the energy that reshapes your reality. And the longer you stay in it, the more unstoppable you become. Unstoppable isn't a mindset. It's a decision. It's the moment you stop entertaining options that lead back to who you used to be. The moment you burn the bridge, not just behind you, but inside you. Because the greatest transformation doesn't happen when you change your habits. It happens when you destroy the exit routes, when you take away the choice to go back. That's where power lives, not in how hard you can push for a day, but in how completely you commit to never breaking again. This is your edge now, relentlessness, not in volume, but in consistency, not in hype, but in clarity. You show up whether it feels good or not. You execute whether you're seen or invisible. You build whether there's applause or silence. And because of that, you begin to operate in a different realm, a realm where average can't follow you, where comfort can't seduce you, where mediocrity has no voice. That's what happens when you become unavailable for your own excuses, when your identity is so locked in that emotions can't knock it loose, when you no longer need to feel like it to do it. You've outgrown the mood swings, you've outgrown the drama, you've outgrown the false urgency of everything that used to distract you. You're calm now, not because life is easier, but because you become harder to shake. This is the energy of someone who knows exactly where they're going. And when that energy becomes your baseline, everything accelerates. Not because the world suddenly favors you, but because you finally stop slowing yourself down. The overthinking ends. The inner battles stop. You cut the noise, you keep your word, you trust your moves. That's when your vision starts catching up to your reality. That's when results compound. That's when days that used to be draining become days you dominate without even flinching. This is more than self-improvement. This is identity reconstruction. Piece by piece, thought by thought, you're reprogramming your system. You're no longer reacting based on who you were. You're responding based on who you've chosen to become. That shift from default to design is what separates the few from the many. Most people never get there. They live their whole lives explaining their behavior through their past. You're done with that. You're writing behavior from your future. And it's not easy. It was never supposed to be. But that's the point. If it were easy, everyone would be great. Everyone would be consistent. Everyone would evolve. But they don't, because ease is addictive. Discomfort is where growth lives. And right now, you're living in that space. You're leaning into pressure. You're choosing the hard way on purpose. Because you know that's the only path that leads to something real, something lasting, something powerful. You're not surviving the pressure. You're transforming under it. And soon, the things that once overwhelmed you will look small. The patterns that used to own you will feel foreign. The distractions that once seduced you won't even register because you're not available for them anymore. Your energy is too focused. Your purpose is too strong. You made a decision that most people avoid their entire lives. The decision to become undeniable. And once you do that, everything changes. You stop being influenced by your environment. You start shaping it. You stop playing defense. You start playing offense. You stop chasing freedom. You live it. Every step, every breath, every moment becomes a reflection of the fact that you no longer hope to transform. You already have. Transformation isn't a feeling. It's a frequency. You either match it or you don't. You either live on that level or you fall back into the loop. And once you rise, once you taste what it feels like to live aligned with who you really are, going back becomes impossible. Not because it's hard to return to your old life, but because it's now too small for you. The space shrinks, the mindset suffocates, the habits that once numbed you now disgust you. Not because you hate your past self, but because you finally respect your future too much to settle. This is where your power becomes permanent, not because you're loud about it, but because you're immovable within it. You've stopped hoping for motivation. You've stopped praying for the perfect timing. You've taken control of the rhythm of your life. You've built momentum through discipline, and now that momentum is building you. This is the version of you that others will never fully understand. Not because they're incapable, but because they haven't yet faced the fire and chosen to walk through it willingly. You did. That fire burned away your fear, burned away the ego, burned away the dependence on being liked, being seen, being praised. Now your energy is quiet, but your presence is loud. You don't chase anymore. You attract through execution. You command through consistency. You lead through example. People will try to figure out what changed, but they won't be able to pinpoint it because the shift wasn't cosmetic. It wasn't a surface upgrade. It was internal, fundamental, a cellular level decision to stop running and own everything. You own your time. You own your reactions. You own your habits, your energy, your space, your choices. Nothing controls you now. because you've trained your mind to serve your purpose. This kind of clarity is rare. It doesn't come from books. It doesn't come from watching others. It comes from doing the work when no one's watching, from keeping promises that nobody will ever applaud, from mastering the details that most ignore because they're too busy waiting to feel inspired. But you get it now. Inspiration is a consequence, not a requirement. It's the reward for choosing the path even when it's steep, for showing up when the excuses are louder than your motivation, for choosing repetition over recognition. The world loves quick transformations, but what you're building isn't quick, it's real. And real change takes time, pressure, and relentless intention. Most will break under it. But you started to realize that the pressure isn't breaking you, it's revealing you. And as that revelation continues, you start living differently, not out of obligation, but out of alignment. Your actions no longer contradict your goals. Your routines reinforce your values. Your environment reflects your standards. You've created so much inner strength that external chaos doesn't move you. You don't rise and fall with the noise. You stay grounded. Because your foundation isn't built on hype, it's built on identity. And now that you've become this version of yourself, there's no need to convince anyone of it. The results speak. The presence speaks. The way you move, think, act, it all tells the story. And it's a story of someone who made a decision, not once, not twice, but every single day to step into power, to choose transformation, and to leave behind the weight of the past forever. And now that you've claimed that identity, everything you touch begins to shift. Not because the world suddenly became easier, but because you became harder to stop. There's a calm now in the way you move, a deep certainty in your steps. You no longer chase after change, you embody it. And when you embody something, it no longer feels like effort. It becomes who you are. It becomes your new normal. What used to be goals are now your baseline. What used to intimidate you now excites you. What used to exhaust you now fuels you, because you're finally aligned. And when you're aligned, you don't waste energy fighting your own mind. You don't sabotage the process with doubt. You don't shrink to please people who never even knew the real you. You stopped auditioning for rooms you've outgrown. You stopped negotiating with voices that never believed in you to begin with. You've outlasted the part of you that needed external permission to rise. Now you walk in purpose, quietly, powerfully, unapologetically. You don't just talk about potential, you fulfill it through action, through intention, through repeated acts of discipline that feel invisible to the outside world, but are slowly carving the strongest version of you from the inside out. That version isn't loud. It doesn't beg for attention. It's not desperate to be noticed. It's too busy building, too busy growing, too busy protecting the peace it fought so hard to create. And that peace changes everything. You sleep differently when you're not betraying your own values. You wake up differently when you know your habits are shaping the life you actually want to live. You move differently when your life isn't a performance. It's a reflection. This is what happens when you stop running from discomfort and start building from it. Every moment becomes a chance to reinforce who you are, not who you were. And that's why most people won't recognize you anymore, because they're still looking for the old patterns, the old insecurities, the old limits. But you've retired that version of yourself. You buried it when you decided to stop being who the world conditioned you to be. When you stopped responding out of fear and started moving from vision. When you stopped waiting to be rescued and realized you are the rescue. That no one is coming to save you because you've already saved yourself. This is what power looks like when it's earned. Not overnight, not in one dramatic breakthrough, but through countless moments of choosing discipline over distraction, vision over comfort, progress over perfection. Every single one of those moments added up. And now they speak through the way you carry yourself, the way you breathe, the way you enter a room without needing to prove anything, because the proof is in your presence. You've become undeniable, not because life made it easy, but because you decided you were no longer available for average. You were no longer going to settle for the life you stumbled into. You were going to build the one you were born for, brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. And now that it's happening, nothing can stop it. Not opinions, not doubt, not failure, because this time it's not just a goal. It's who you are now. There comes a point where the opinions of others dissolve into silence, not because people stop talking, but because you stop listening. You've trained your focus to only respond to your future. You no longer flinch at criticism. You no longer chase validation, and you no longer explain your evolution to people still committed to their limitations. That's what transformation really feels like. Freedom from the noise, from the pressure to justify your growth, from the addiction to being understood by those who never had the capacity to understand your purpose. Your life no longer revolves around proving anything. It revolves around becoming everything you were meant to be. And that shift is what separates those who dabble from those who dominate. You've chosen to dominate, not people, not situations, but your own path, your own thoughts, your own time. That's where true power is born, in mastering the one thing most people run from, themselves. And now your relationship with discomfort has changed. It used to scare you. It used to feel like a warning sign. Now it feels like a signal, a green light, a personal invitation from your future saying, come closer. So you lean into it, you invite it, because you finally understand that growth never comes dressed as comfort. It comes as resistance. It comes as pressure. It comes as those hard days where your only reward is knowing you didn't quit. But that's enough now, because your identity is no longer built on outcomes. It's built on obedience to your purpose. You've learned how to show up without applause. You've learned how to keep going without clarity. You've learned how to believe in yourself when no one else did. And that belief has changed your entire foundation. You're no longer held up by motivation. You're held up by standards, the kind you don't lower for anything, not for stress, not for fatigue, not for fear. You walk through all of it with your head high and your eyes locked forward, because you've tasted what it feels like to live on the edge of your potential, and nothing else is acceptable now. And the most powerful part, you're still just getting started, because the kind of transformation you're building doesn't have a finish line. It's a lifestyle, a rhythm, a standard you protect with every choice you make. You no longer ask, can I do this? You ask, is this a line? You don't waste energy negotiating with weakness. You don't stall on decisions. You move with conviction, because you've already decided who you are. And every action you take now is just proof of that decision. And as that proof stacks, so does your confidence, not the loud surface kind, the quiet, bulletproof kind that comes from doing the work no one sees, from keeping promises that only you know about, from staying true to the person you said you'd become, even on days when your emotions beg you to break. You don't break. You bend. You adapt. You rise again and again, because that's who you are now. You've rewritten your story, not by erasing the past, but by refusing to repeat it. And now every moment is a page written in strength. Every choice is a vote for the future you've already claimed. The world may not see it yet, but they will. And when they do, it won't be because you told them. It'll be because the results became too loud to ignore. You've done something most people will never do. You've taken responsibility for your own evolution. You didn't wait for permission. You didn't wait to be rescued. You stopped pointing fingers and started building answers. That's rare. That's powerful. That's the beginning of an unstoppable life. Because the moment you realize that no one is coming to save you, a different kind of fire is lit inside you. It's not panic. It's purpose. It's the realization that if it's going to happen, it has to start with you. And that's exactly what you've done. You stopped waiting for the perfect conditions. You stopped relying on hype or outside motivation. You've become the spark. You've become the system. You've built rituals that are harder to break than your old excuses. And now your life runs on discipline, not feelings. That's why everything is changing. That's why your momentum is real. Because it's not based on inspiration. It's built on identity. It's built on that unshakable belief that you're meant for more, and you're no longer willing to betray that truth. You've stopped asking the world for signs. You became the sign. You became the proof that transformation isn't some mystical moment. It's 1,000 small decisions stacked on top of each other until the old version of you has no room to breathe. You've closed the door to comfort, not because you hate rest, but because you love progress more. You crave the stretch, the strain, the stillness that comes after doing what others avoid. You made peace with the pressure. Now it sharpens you. It sculpts you. And as you rise, something else happens. You start to see clearly. You see how many people are asleep, walking through life half present, chasing distractions, avoiding their calling. You see it because you were there once, but not anymore. Now your vision is sharp. Your energy is guarded. Your standards are sacred. And because of that, your world is changing. Your inner circle is shifting. Your time feels more valuable. Your silence is more powerful than your past conversations. People feel it, even if they don't understand. They feel it. They notice the way you don't react the way you used to. They sense the peace you carry, the intention behind your words.